And our next speaker will be Hayden Ludwig. He is an investigative researcher from Capital Research Center, and he'll be speaking on the subject, Rent to Evangelical.
My name is Hayden Ludwig. I'm a member of the Orthodox Presbyterian Church, and I'm an investigative researcher for the Capital Research Center here in Washington, D.C. CRC is America's investigative think tank. You can find our work at capitalresearch.org. We follow the money trail from wealthy foundations and liberal mega donors to the activists they support, shining a spotlight on dark money where the political left would rather remain in the shadows. Here in Washington, we are a beacon of light in the darkness, and I'm blessed to have a job which lets me defend my country and my Christian calling after truth and righteousness. It's a calling I thank God for every day. It is an honor to be on the front lines of this war for the soul of America, a nation carved from the wilderness by godly pilgrims, harried and hated by the worldlings they fled from. You see, true God-fearing religion has always been central to our greatness. The United States is unique in the world, not a kingdom or despotism, but a republic of laws, echoing the great republic given to Moses and the Israelites at Sinai. Our forefathers knew that when they declared independence in 1776, looking to ancient Israel as a biblical example for framing our new government. The historian John Wingate Thornton once observed that it's to the pulpit, to the Puritan pulpit, he adds, that we owe the moral force which won our independence. Critics in Britain even mocked Americans' piety, calling our revolution the Presbyterian Rebellion. The future of our land has never been certain, but it was with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence that the founders pledged their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor to secure what we now take for granted. My friends, if we lose our goodness, we lose our greatness. As I look to my generation, so full of doubt and resentment, I wonder if we really appreciate that. It's here in America where my mother's family found shelter from the ravages of World War II Germany, and where my father's Scots-Irish ancestors fought for the Union and the liberty of all men in our bloody Civil War. We here humbly follow in their footsteps and stand on the shoulders of giants in this, our own battle for the future of America. I'm here to warn you that there is a well-oiled, well-heeled political machine that few are aware of. We call it the left, but it's really a cabal of cynical ideologues, politicians, professional activists, and shadowy interests with dark designs for our country's future and the money to bring that vision to pass. I've made it my career to study our foes' strategy, tactics, and language. Here's what I've learned. The left's strategy is always to deceive, divide, and exploit. Its tactics are misdirection and fake grassroots advocacy, what we call astroturfing. And leftists twist our language to use against us, putting bitter for sweet, darkness for light, and calling good evil and evil good. The same is true of the donors bankrolling these schemes. Liberals coined the term dark money to hurl against conservatives, Scare Tactics 101. But it's the truth. The truth is that it's the left, not the right, with access to a virtually unlimited spigot of untraceable dollars in the war to fundamentally transform America. Liberals propagate conspiracy theories, such as the one that the Libertarian Koch brothers buy elections. But my own reporting has revealed vastly larger liberal dark money networks, unmatched by anything conservatives can hope to offer, and ignored by the left-leaning media and hypocritical politicians. They aren't interested in facts which don't suit their needs. These are the people behind the Marxist-led Black Lives Matter, the violence in our nation's capital, the destruction of small businesses, and the mob hysteria directed against police officers and Trump supporters this past summer. We've seen their vision of America, and it's ugly. And don't think Christians are safe. These mega donors, such as George Soros, the Tides Foundation, and the Ford Foundation, have targeted our churches for takeover. Leftist groups are brazen about their goal of splitting off evangelical voters from the Republican Party in order to cement an agenda that takes us further from God. Secular activists even gloat about their rent and evangelical model, buying Christian mascots to spread a message about de-Christianizing our nation from the pulpits. These agents of deception confound and warp biblical language to mask their secular agenda, cherry-picking words like love from the scriptures and preying upon Christian compassion to push far-left legislation. They demand Christians preach the whole gospel, code for the social justice fraud perpetrated by overeducated college graduates and ideologues who hate this country. As if socialists can teach Christians anything about justice, they do better to study the infinite justice that led Christ to the cross and ask for grace. Left-wing activists brag about neutralizing the Southern Baptist Convention to give Democrats an edge in ramming radical policies through Congress. Issues like mass voter registration to build permanent left-wing majorities, unlimited access to federally funded abortions, a Green New Deal that would rob future generations of cheap and abundant energy, mass immigration to weaken the rule of law and ensure an endless supply of new Democratic voters, an anti-American, revisionist, downright pagan education in schools to corrupt our youth and demonize our holy God. This is nothing more than partisan politics masquerading as the gospel. But what good news do these merchants of despair bring? No atoning work on the cross, no remission of sins, no assurance of salvation, only a Christless tyranny ruled by the Prince of Lies. This is no time for compromise, but strength. We love our neighbor when we speak the truth and oppose evil. Christians must be wise to the left's wiles as never before, fighting for the gospel and trusting in Almighty God to deliver us victory over darkness. My message is this: trust in God and keep your powder dry, and we shall surely prevail. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being with us here. I'm Matthew Bellis, and we have a panel of speakers to speak about the topic here of Renton Evangelical, Judge Saul and Pastor Jim Garlow, and we also have Hayden Ludwig there on the end. I have to say, and be honest with you, this is about the first time that I'm really hearing about this Renton Evangelical model. What has been your history with it, Judd?
Well, we see it not just with some of these we kind of know a lot of these guys are already left-leaning. I mean, they're kind of nutty and they're out of orthodoxy. What's crazy is that some of these same organizations and money are pouring into what we would consider conservative evangelical circles. One of the biggest ones is, we mentioned the National Immigration Forum. National Immigration Forum spawned the Evangelical Immigration Table, which is headed up by Russell Moore from the Southern Baptist Ethics Religious Liberties Commission. And so also on the Evangelical Immigration Table was Joanne Lyon.
Joanne Lyon
from the Wesleyan Church.
Yes.
And if you look at several conservative places, you'll find that people that are involved with these organizations are kind of people behind pushing social justice movement in conservative circles. So you can just follow the trail down the line, but we know the EIT was funded by Soros. Headed up by what people would consider conservative evangelicals.
Pastor Jim Garlow, learning about this dark money and things coming from the Soros Foundation really begs the question, how much money have you received from the Soros Foundation?
I'm going to give the same answer Wallace gave, only mine's truthful.
Okay.
You have set me up to make an appeal for funds right now. Thank you. If you don't want me to turn to George Soros, I need your help. But it's on a very serious note, this has penetrated into, we use the word social justice again. We need to clarify again. Social justice is not scriptural. It's Marxism.
Yeah.
Right.
Biblical justice is a wonderful thing. It comes from the scriptures, the heart of God. This is an agenda that is antithetical to the gospel. It's globalistic in nature, which is always related to the Antichrist. And it has penetrated, even as you mentioned, to top levels of many evangelical and even holiness denominations, which I find personally heartbreaking.
Yeah. Hayden Ludwig, what brought you to want to start exposing a lot of these things? And being such a young guy, it just seems like shouldn't you be doing other things with your life?
He's only 27.
Yeah, well, in my job, all I do is we work in the secular world. My organization is not a religious organization, though we're blessed with many Christians who work for us. But all we do is trace these secular groups and their funding to the secular agenda they push. It doesn't touch Christianity. But when I follow it, all the same money trail to churches and organizations that purport to be Christian or Jewish or Catholic, I find that they push the same exact agenda. There's no daylight between the secular activists and the supposed Christian activists. And I would wonder, if you believe in justice, why do you have to append social to it? You've always believed in justice. What's different about this? Because words actually matter.
Yeah. Is there any way to get around this type of dark money, or at least how do we expose this more so more people are aware of this? Pastor Jim?
Well, it has to be the kind of research that Hayden is doing,
Yeah.
and a few others are doing right now, and it needs to be articulated. And I would encourage all of you, we can send a link to you of what you've just watched, and get that to every follower of Christ you possibly can, so they're aware of this. Because if you listen to the language, I've been following, for example, Jim Wallace and Sojourners forever. Clear back in my graduate school's days, and that was back at the time of Noah's flood. So it's been a long time. I've been walking with this. And the language is so appealing. The language is always good. You could listen to a dozen of these people, and unless you knew the background, you would not pick up on the demonstrably anti-biblical thesis that underwrites it. And they see themselves, by the way, as the true evangelicals. Yeah. They're very, very blatant in that view. They think we're the ones that have wandered off the reservation and continue to run with a distinctly Marxist view because they flow out of the liberation theology stream, and they believe that's scriptural to them.
Thank you, panelists, for your input. I'm Matthew Bellis, and you have been well versed.